do it.
All right.
Recording in progress. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Mastering Rod Building podcast. I'm your host, Bill Faulkner. And today I have with me a good friend of mine, director at FlexCoat, director of operations, director of development, director of problem solving, director of everything, John Cates. And so welcome. Some of you,
Hello.
yeah, many of you know John, and you've met him at ICRBE or any of these, number of rod shows because he's kind of been out there in the community. But if you don't know him by name, there's about a 90 to 95% chance if you call FlexCoat during normal business hours when they're open, John's the guy who's gonna answer the phone, right? And John has been part-time at FlexCoats going back to like turn of the century.
There you go.
2001, somewhere in there, and then full time, like I said, as a director for almost 13 years now. So, John, thanks for joining on behalf of FlexCoat, and welcome to the Mastering Rod Building podcast.
Yeah, thank you. I will say I wasn't director for all those 13 years, but yes, I
Hey,
kind of built up to that.
tell it to the judge, man. It's all good. It's
Yeah.
all good for me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I appoint you. I'm knighting you director for
Okay.
all
All
those
right.
years.
I
I'm
just I don't
retro.
want I don't want anybody to listen to this and be like,
Yeah. I'm giving you an honorary directorship dating. I'll
okay.
give it to you back to your part-time days in 2001.
Okay. All right, fine. Yeah. Let's
Yeah.
do it.
So we'll start, I know you knew this was coming, right? Like, I think obviously everyone is tuning in, very familiar with FlexCoat. FlexCoat
Mhm.
is the original, uh, rod building dedicated company providing products, supplies, and equipment for rod builders.
Yeah.
We're going to have Roger, sort of the founder and the Mr. Flexcoat, on another episode to talk about the history of the company and that kind of stuff. So I won't get into it now, but I think we all know what America wants to know right now. And that
Yeah.
is, and I'm hoping you can settle it and like be
Okay.
on the record with it forever. And that's, is it ciders or cedars?
It's cedars.
Yeah,
Like
Roger
this
Cedars.
like a cedar tree. Like
Right,
we're in Central Texas. I'm in Central Texas.
right,
There's cedar everywhere. And
right.
whenever I first met Roger and his family when I was in the
Yeah,
eighth grade, I just thought it was spelled Cedar, like a cedar tree.
right, right,
And then I don't remember when I saw it spelled out, and I was like, "What is that?"
right.
But yeah, it's like cedars,
Yeah.
like a cedar tree.
You never know in Texas. I say this as my mom's family having immigrated through the port of Galveston from Germany and
Okay.
settling in the hill country of Texas. You get a lot of German and Czech influence. And if you were in
Yep.
Germany, we'd probably say ciders,
You're
but
right.
it is cedars now in Texas. So thank you for being
Yes.
on record and settling that for us.
Hey, in Texas, we butcher not only German, but everything,
You
every
name it.
language. We
Yeah.
make it our own, and it's really not very intelligent, but we do.
Well, you more than make up for it. As a native Texan myself, I can say I'd like to believe you more than make up for it by how well you and fluently you speak barbecue.
There you
So
go.
there we go.
I'll
That's
take
right.
that.
If you ain't had the Texas brisket, you don't know what you're missing. But
Cooper's in
um,
Llano. Okay,
oh, there
sorry.
we go. Which one was it? Sorry.
Cooper's in Llano.
Cooper's in Atlanta. All right, he's got a personal favorite. There it is. He's on record.
Yeah. Yeah.
If we run out of material, we may have a barbecue debate. We can get into that a little bit, right?
Yeah.
But so, John, thanks so much for joining.
You got
Part of
it,
what I
Bill.
wanted to talk about today, obviously, FlexCoat makes a full line of thread coatings. You got the original high build, you got light formula, you've got what Ultra V. I
Ultra
mean,
V.
you have color preserver, you have brush cleaner, you have 5-minute epoxy, you have 30-minute epoxy, you have what is it,
Paste.
tougher than hell paste epoxy, or
Hell or high water.
hell or high water paste epoxy. Yeah, so
Yep.
full line of that. But what I don't know, a lot of people may not know, is how much equipment you guys manufacture, right? And
Yeah.
so you also make rod wrapping equipment, rod finishing equipment, power turning equipment,
Mhm.
and all this kind of stuff. And so another thing I should say that people may not know beyond that, I'm very fortunate and I love this. I'm trying to knock them all off my list, but
Mhm.
I have personally walked most of the facilities in North America that make blanks, that manufacture their own blanks
Mhm.
and finished rods. And there is one common theme in every single one of those. And that's when we go through their finishing process.
Right.
Guess whose drum dryers are in literally every single factory I've ever been
Yep.
in, and that's FlexCoat. So talk to me about that. How'd you guys have been in that business a long time, and
Yeah.
you're still in that business. You're still making and tweaking. So talk to me about the kind of the OEM manufacturing equipment side of FlexCoat.
Right. So we'll start with the drums. So,
Okay.
obviously that precedes me. Roger with another gentleman, they kind of came up with drums and that I don't know exactly when that was, 80s, in the
Yeah.
80s,
Late 70s, early 80s. Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. But, I could speak to it and they did a great job. Okay.
Right.
Obviously a lot of those machines are still turning rods right now,
Yes, they are.
and maybe with a motor change every
Yep.
20 years or whatever it is. But
And for the record, I've seen some home built home shop
oh yeah.
dryers. Yeah. And so, but I'm talking about drums that can hold 250 rods.
Well, each drum that we make, and I don't know how far they go back with this design, but the design that we currently make is a drum that holds 78 rods
Okay.
per drum. And then we
Right.
make a double drum,
Right.
you just double that. So was that 156? So,
Yep.
And that comes with the two drums, which are on I think you mentioned the homemade versions. A lot of times they have trouble with sagging. They
Right.
don't make ours is
Yep.
over engineered steel, heavy,
Right. Yep.
welded by an awesome welder. And,
Yeah.
it's all, as I like to say, we don't cut a fat hog on these drum dryers. We cover our costs. We build them as good as we can, as cheap as we can, as fast as we can. And then what we want is we want to give that facility or that OEM manufacturer the best drum. And it comes with a finishing tray on it with one
Yep.
of our motors and everything all rigged out. Awesome lighting.
Yep.
We cover it all. And what that does is it gives them that piece of machinery in their facility to turn rods on for decades, but we
Yep.
want them to use our finish,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Like we're not cutting the fat hog on the machine, and we're going to go through all this works. I mean, start to finish, those drums can take 3 months to make.
Yeah, and they're significant. So and part of bringing up the homemade one, just to say this is a different animal. This is not a homemade thing. It's
And
a
I'm
very
not trying to
commercial
take
grade.
away from
No,
anybody
me neither. Me
doing
neither.
homemade anything. I get
Yeah.
guys calling me all the time saying, "Hey, I'm trying to make my own wrapper," and I'm like, "Great, how can I help you?"
Right. Yep.
Custom rod building is custom rod building, and why not take that to another level? And if they want to buy wheels from me or
Yep.
a bare motor or whatever it is, hey, let's do it.
Awesome. Yeah. And so, but I think why that was, I would have said I know FlexCoat really well, but that was really a surprise to me to see that. And I'm literally telling you they're in every factory that has motors that
That's
work,
awesome.
and many of whom have tried other solutions and said,
Yeah,
I give up.
we get
Yeah.
that. We get
Right.
that.
But and so the reason why I bring that up though is you kind of have this OEM commercial grade heavy duty DNA, right?
Oh
And
yeah.
so one of the things, and you and I've talked about this many times, I'm a big believer in you can research all you want, you can read 10,000 words, you can talk to everybody you can, but you don't really know until you buy one and try it yourself and do your
That's
own
right.
thing, right? And
That's
so
right.
my very first motor I ever bought in 1995 when I was starting as a rod builder was a FlexCoat 6 RPM rod drying motor.
Yep.
I still have
There you go.
that, and it still works.
If
It's
you treat it right, it'll treat you right.
yeah, it's maybe not as quiet as it once was, but it
There you
runs
go.
like a top. And so I will not name names, but I have burned out every other motor from everybody else I've ever bought, including the ones that I made myself where I purchased them, at Granger or at the Scientific Supply Place or on eBay or wherever. So, again, I'm with you. Do whatever you want. And some people, I love this term Vic Cutter used when he was he was talking about being a maker, right? And a lot of us are makers. That's part of what moves us to make rods. And we also tie flies, and maybe we reload or we do we would turn wood, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But it's like I'm with you. If some people really enjoy, like my buddy Joe Nicklow down in Houston builds beautiful fly rods, and he has designed and evolved for years his own wrapper, and it's like a furniture grade piece of equipment, and it's gorgeous, and it stores and is compact for what he needs it for. So if you're a maker like Joe is, and you enjoy making that stuff, do it. But
I'm a maker.
you are definitely a maker. We're going to talk about that. So, but but if you don't want to do that, or you just want to
Yeah.
build rods, or you just are tired of stuff burning out,
Yeah.
FlexCoat is a really good source for not the cheapest thing, but the very
No.
best thing that can be made that's going to last
Yeah.
you a lifetime if you take care of it. And you, John, you're interesting. And this is part of why I wanted to have you on. Is one of the things that's real different about FlexCoat too is you have a catalog and you have set products. And for those of you who don't know, FlexCoat, you can order from them directly, either retail or wholesale. Obviously, if you're doing wholesale, you got to provide some business license documentation, that kind of stuff. Or they have the oldest, longest standing, broadest distribution network of probably any rod building component, like anywhere you get stuff has FlexCoat, right? I won't
Yeah.
even name them all. Google it, and every single place that shows up probably sells FlexCoat. So you can
Yeah.
certainly find it if you already have an account with a rod room or a Get Bit or a HFF custom rods or a mud hole. You can get FlexCoat stuff there. But
Yeah.
you can also call and talk to John, and if you need
That's right.
something a little bit different, right? So
Yep.
recently, I say recently, within the last 10 or 12 years, I converted to power finishing on butt wraps with a brush. And so I
Mhm.
bought the GM 200, which is the original FlexCoat,
In the gray
uh,
box.
gray box, slip clutch, lifetime piece of equipment. I
Oh
bought
yeah.
mine from Lance Dupree at Swampland Tackle.
Okay.
And it's great, but I needed some help modifying it and getting it to fit on my Renzetti lathe bed. And so
Mhm.
that's kind of how I got to know John. Was I started calling and being like, "Hey, have you got any more of these brackets, or do you have this or that, or can we tweak this out?"
Yeah.
And so we were doing that for a while, and you said, "Hey, I'm working on this new thing, and
Yeah.
I'm not sure Roger thinks it's going to be a good idea, but I've got this DC motor that's reversible and whatever. What about that?
He
You want to
definitely
try
didn't
that?"
think it was a good
No,
idea.
he
I don't
didn't.
want to beat up on people, but
No,
I,
no, yeah. Hey, that's between you and Roger. You and Mr.
yeah.
Cedars.
Yes, sir.
You guys can figure that out. But
Yeah.
that's one of the really interesting things you do. And you sort of jokingly mentioned being a maker, but you are.
Yeah.
If you want something a little different,
Yeah.
that's not
Do
exactly
it.
like the stock product, or if you're just trying to look for something, you can call John and John will actually make something for you or modify something or adapt something, and
Yeah.
often at no additional charge, right?
That's right. That's
So,
right.
I think when you first look at the equipment, the other thing that's interesting about the FlexCoat equipment, and you guys just bring such a practical, hands-on, no BS kind of approach to things. A lot of this stuff is made with what I guess I would call it like furniture grade plywood, maybe, or how do
Well,
you describe it?
yeah, it's a melamine coated MDF.
Mhm.
Okay. So why do we choose that? Well, and trust me, that's one of the things that I looked at changing.
Yeah,
I was just like, well, maybe we should go away from this.
yeah,
And I started looking at, aluminum beds and all these different aluminum things and,
right,
making it look maybe more high tech and all this
right.
stuff. And I looked at all that stuff and, price wise and application wise and how it worked and everything. And I just go, you know what? This melamine coated MDF is really great. It stays flat. So
Yeah,
it's not like a plywood or a wood that can warp.
right.
Okay, it'll stay flat. The only thing that can really ruin the MDF that we use is if you soak it in water,
Yeah,
okay, or you drop it on the ground on the corner or
yeah,
something like that.
yeah, yeah,
So if you're misusing it, you could have problems, or if it's in a flood. But other than that, I mean, we get stuff like we were at the show, the ICRBE, and forget the gentleman's name. I feel so bad, but he brought up
we won't tell him. Maybe he's not listening.
he brought up one of the original hand wrappers, and that thing was ancient.
Yeah.
And Roger signed it for him.
Oh,
And
that's awesome.
and that thing it's been through it, well marked, well
Oh
grooved,
yeah,
everything stained,
yeah,
all that stuff, but he's still using it.
yeah.
And
I
I
still have
mean,
mine. I still have mine that I got when I got that drying motor. Y'all used to sell a kit,
yeah,
or Cabela sold a kit where you could get the
yeah.
hand wrapper, the drying motor. Like it was kind of an
Small
all
business kit, we
type
still
of deal.
sell that.
Yes, okay, small business kit. So I bought the small business kit, and I still have it. And I actually travel with it because, like, when I
Yeah,
go to Venice to fish, I got a bunch
heck
of
yeah.
guides down there that I repair rods for every
There you
time I'm
go.
down there. So I take big boxes of tip tops and
Yeah,
some some black thread and a bunch of random guide sizes and colors, and the
Yeah.
rods
You
show
can
up.
make friends repairing rods like
Hey,
that.
buddy. Absolutely. That's right. My guy, Captain Patrick Dickinson down there, Dixie Riverside or Dixie Outfitters LLC. I don't even know how many tip tops I've replaced for that guy, but he takes
Yeah.
good care of me, so it's worth it. And then my
Yeah.
offshore captain, Eddie Berger with Fish Finish Charters, he brings me rods and has me strip them and rewrap them, right? Like
Yeah.
this roller guides eventually go. He's like, I don't want roller
Yeah.
guides, put ring guides and a roller top on it. It's like, you
Yeah.
bet I can do it. So we
Yeah.
take care of it. But yeah, so
Yeah.
that's all done on the FlexCode equipment I take down there, and the battery operated turning motor, which has
Yep.
saved my bacon. I'm in Alabama, and we get heavy thunderstorms, and I've learned to
Yep.
try to avoid finishing on days
Yep.
when that happens. But when you're traveling and doing repairs, or if you have no choice but to work during a storm or live somewhere you
That's
lose
right.
power, having
Yep.
that battery operated motor is a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you sort of let me try and be among the first to use the
Yes.
GM 200, or what do we call the DC motor? What are we calling it?
Yeah. It was at that time, it was called I called it the ultimate motor.
Okay.
And it didn't,
Ultimate motor, bro.
it didn't stay that name, but the stock number stuck. We still call that the UMDC.
Okay,
And
UMDC.
now it's the UMDX.
Okay.
I know
Ooh.
I probably shouldn't do all this stuff, but at the time, and now we call it the dual control motor.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
So you got one of the first ones. I think the one that I sent you, I hadn't even settled on the
You had the sort of
layout
the
of the
layout,
switches,
the
like where they
footprint.
were
Yeah,
going to
exactly.
end up. So
Right.
you got one that just has a flex coat sticker on it. I
Yep.
believe I saw
Yep.
from your video. It didn't
Yep.
have the sticker I designed
Right. Yep.
to.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. I totally
And I
remember
still
all
don't know
that.
how to use the locking alignment PVC piece. I see it's like
You
I don't
just
know what
pop
it's
it on
for.
there.
Yeah,
You
well,
just pop it
I
on there.
guess I don't know. I'm happy. I'm not changing anything. But
Yeah.
so talk to me a little bit about the evolution of that. We're joking but serious
Yeah.
that Roger wasn't super excited about it because it was kind of like, what need does it fill? You've already got the DC 200, but
Yeah.
with that unit, you get a lot of different stuff. It's reversible, still has a slip
Yeah.
clutch. You get variable speed. You can get one with or without a foot control. I mean, it's a
Yeah.
pretty exceptional piece of equipment. What, and I also like it that it's an example of something that you're kind of capable of tinkering with as a
Mhm.
maker. And again,
Yeah.
you made mine a different height because we measured it
Yeah.
out and figured out what height we wanted it once I mounted it on a Renzetti
Yep.
base and put it on a
Yep.
Renzetti lathe bed.
Yeah.
So that's an option. John can work with you on stuff like that. But talk to me about the evolution of that and what's the difference between the DC and the DX?
Yeah. Okay. So going back, I'm going to go way back.
Go
So
way back.
about 2001, I just got it. I just graduated from University of Texas in Austin, and I
Hook
had a
'em.
film degree. Yeah, there you go. And so,
What every person going into rod building studies is film.
Yeah, film, right? And so, I kind of had some film jobs here and there, and I came out and I started working for Ryan Cedars. That's Roger's son.
Mm-hmm.
He had a company called Waterloo Rods, or still Waterloo Rods, same company. He
Still out
sold
there,
it.
yeah.
Ryan went on to Yeti coolers and things like that. But
Yeah.
so Roger came
It's
over.
not
And
just coolers, John. It's a lifestyle.
Sure.
Live wild, John.
That's right.
Okay,
So
keep going. Sorry.
yeah. So Roger came over and kind of just stole me. Okay.
Yep.
He's like, you know how to make a video? Yeah. Okay. So I went and started making video, and that's where that first video came out in 2001 that we did, rod building, how we do it. It was on a VHS tape.
Wow.
I'm going to pause for a second.
Yeah. Let
On
people Google what a
tape.
VHS tape is. All you
We
young
still-
people.
We still have a case of those in the rafters.
It was the candidate that it was the one that it emerged victorious in the beta VHS
Yes.
wars, and you
Yes.
can look that up too because it was actually once a real thing.
And then later I had to go in and convert the file to DVDs and whatever.
Yeah.
And we actually sold the last DVD like a week ago.
Did you really?
And we're not doing anymore. We're done. Like we had a big case of them, and like every other week, Craig would come out for that. I got 5 more, and I'm like,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
And
and the thing is, you put all that stuff on YouTube now. So
Yeah,
and
yeah.
you mentioned it.
Yeah.
There's a FlexCoat YouTube channel, and they have
Yep.
an entire series of how-to videos they call how
we do it.
And again, I think it reflects this sort of really simple, practical,
Yes.
straight ahead. way to do things. And again, there's always more than one way to do things, but I
Mhm.
guarantee you anything you learn on that channel, John,
You
Roger,
could you
Craig,
can
they've been
apply
doing
it.
it for a
Yeah,
long time
yeah.
and it works. Yeah.
It's versatile knowledge is
Yeah,
what I
it
like to
is.
say.
Yeah.
If you don't like exactly how we're doing it, you can be like, okay, well, maybe I can, modify it this way, the way I
Yep.
like to do it. And
Yep.
no, and Roger's a genius. He came up with how we do it because he doesn't want anybody arguing with him. If
Right.
we came out and said this is the best way to do it,
Right. Then you're
well, then everyone's going to come out of the
right.
woodwork and just
Right. Yeah.
argue with you to death. Well, they
Right.
can't argue with it. This is how we do it.
Love it.
So,
Love
and
the
obviously we think it's best.
ethos. Yeah, sure.
So
There's some
back to
good
what you
tips
were.
on there. Like every time somebody says, I hate the round brushes, I'm like, well, are you using them right? Have you seen them roll it
Yeah.
to get the
Yeah, there you
P to
go.
finish over on the edge? There's
Hey,
some really good tips in there.
you want to talk about stubborn learner? That's me. Like
Yeah.
Roger tried to tell me that for decades, and I
Yeah.
couldn't understand it until we
Yeah.
shot that video.
Right. Me
Just
too. I was like, what are you talking about?
just
Because
4 to
it's been
5
in
years
writing.
ago.
It used to be in some of the little booklets that you guys had, and it didn't click
I
for me.
couldn't get it.
Yeah, me neither.
It's
But
like
then
it
when
was
he
like
shows you,
algebra for
you're
the
like,
first 2 years. I just
ah.
yeah. So anyway, back to like the motors, right? Like
Okay. Yeah.
we're shooting that video and we're shooting
Right.
other little things for that video in 2001. And I'm really good at just going, hey, I got a question.
Yeah.
I'm like, why do you have a motor that does wrapping and then a motor that does finishing and then a motor that does curing? Like, I mean, I don't know anything, but I'm just a dumb kid, but
Right.
why can't you just
Can
have
we make
one
one that does
motor,
all that? Yeah.
one motor to rule them all, as I like to say? And he just like, yeah, let's
Right.
just shoot the video and stop talking about that. So cut to when I start working there full time, I still have that question just rattling around in there. And
Yeah.
then I started like talking to a lot of rod builders, a lot of customers. Jim Icing,
Mm-hmm.
huge influence
Yeah.
on it because he's just like, John, he would just call and talk to me.
Yep.
John, I hate sitting down to wrap a rod. It's just, I have your wrapper. It's great. Don't get me wrong, but it's like an F1 race car. And I get it. When I first started wrapping at Waterloo Rods with Ryan Cedars, I got on the Cadillac of flex coat wrappers, the DL 747 with that wrapping motor, the Dayton motor, great motor, probably in my opinion, the greatest wrapping motor you could have. But
Probably. Yeah.
it's like an F1 race car.
Yeah.
Okay. And if you hit the pedal slightly and that thing will just take
off. Yep.
So you got to do like hand braking and
Yep.
all these other techniques. It took me like a day and a half to even just learn how to do it. But once I had learned it,
Yeah.
I don't think you could catch me. You know what I mean? I was just getting thread on rods,
Yeah,
production stuff.
those and the speed wrappers, like again, that's another piece of equipment. People would be really surprised how often that equipment is sitting on the benches of these rod manufacturers here in the US.
Yeah.
There's a whole lot of people wrapping on that or
Yeah.
variations of that equipment that they've sort of evolved over time, right? Or adapted.
Yeah. And that Dayton motor that we use on the 747, I've talked to customers that say, yeah, I need to get another motor. Mine burned out. And I'm like, well, how long you had it? And he's like,
49 years. Yeah, exactly.
And I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah. 20 years. Yeah.
That's probably
you
it.
should probably get a new one.
Yeah.
So anyway, I asked that question and I just started thinking about talking to Jim Icing, talked to a gentleman on the rod board. Everyone knows him. He doesn't like to take credit, but I'm going to give it to him here. Roger Wilson.
Yep.
Great guy.
I was going to say the only piece of equipment that I have that's a motor that hasn't burned out that I said earlier, everything else is burned out. That's not true. Roger built me a couple of things specifically for turning mandrels for making carbon fiber grips. I needed something with a drill chuck and a little heavier duty.
The man's a genius.
Well, he is definitely a maker, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would talk to him on the phone and just be real grateful that he would even talk to me. Because you read his posts on RBO,
right?
And you see that for years, and you're like, I'm actually talking to this guy. Like it's a little bit like, when I was in the film business, I met movie stars, and then one day I met Roger Wilson on the phone. You know what I'm saying? Like that's the way I felt about it. And even Roger was like, "Are you talking to Roger Wilson?" I'm like. Yeah. So that was cool.
I thought he was kind of a mad scientist, but he solved my problem. So So
really good guy.
and Jim Ising, who John keeps referring to, that's a name that's so familiar to John and I. So Jim
Yeah.
was the director of marketing at Anglers Resource
Mhm.
forever,
Mhm.
and some of you know him from some of the Fuji YouTube videos and things. But unfortunately, we lost Jim in early
Mhm.
2023 to cancer.
Yep.
But may he rest in peace. And he's a great guy. So okay, so you're talking to two good sources. You got Jim, and
At
Jim
least two.
Jim is one of these guys who would admit, like, I don't love building rods. I love having the rod being done with the rod being
Yeah.
built, and I love that I
Yeah.
can build it just the way I want. But
Yeah.
he wanted to be quick. He wanted to be practical. He wanted to be simplify, simplify, simplify. Right.
I
So
can empathize with Jim Ising's
yeah, you
feelings.
guys definitely
Okay.
saw the world the same way for sure when
Yeah.
it comes to building rods.
And one more note on Jim. He went back a year after I released the motor, and I sent him one. I sent
Yep.
him a motor. I go,
Yep.
there you go, Jim. That one's yours. And I did the same with Roger. And so Jim went on RBO, and maybe y'all can go back in the lineage of that. And
Yeah,
he made
rodbuilding.org is what John's referring to as RBO. Sorry. Yeah.
he gave us probably the best review
Yeah.
that I could ever expect to get. I was
Yeah.
just like, wow, unprompted. Thank you.
Well, and he's a marketing guy. He could write. He's a
Oh yeah.
writer. Several of those guys, like yeah, Bernie Schultz, our elite, one of the elite series pros we sponsor, is the same way. He's a great writer. You think of him as a pro fisherman, but these guys that have worked in marketing have had to write so much,
Yeah.
in the past. But yeah, I could see Jim writing a good review. He
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
he was very proud of that too, because he'd be like,
Awesome.
I designed that, right? And I'm like, okay, yes, I do.
Yeah. He definitely motivated me. Like
Yeah.
we talked a a about it, and he was
Well,
a
you
big
needed that
motivator.
kind of motivation when
Well,
Roger's
I
telling you
needed the
it's a bad
courage.
idea and you should quit.
Yeah, I needed the courage, and I
Yeah.
needed the fuel, because I thought it was a good idea, but I think
Yeah.
stuff's good ideas all the time, and then my kids walk in the room and go,
Yeah.
"What are you doing, Dad?"
Right.
Anyway,
The
so
irony of this is that we're actually recording this podcast, and
yeah,
John is coming live from his daughter's crafts room.
that's right.
So maybe
Best looking
if
room
you
we
don't want them
got.
walking in and telling you your ideas are dumb, don't settle in their craft room. Get your own craft room, Dad.
Yeah, well, this used to be my office, but I
Yeah.
gave it up. So,
Yeah. Attaboy.
um,
First of many
so
concessions to your daughter for the rest of
that's
your
right.
life, I could assure
How
you.
could I? Yeah. So, I started tinkering, right?
Right.
And, I started tinkering. I found a company. I found this company. You just kind of start putting the pieces together.
Yeah.
You're spending a little money here, a little money there. You're doing some different things. The single moment when I think I figured out that I might have something with the motor that we're talking about, was when I was talking to Roger one time,
Wilson.
Roger Wilson.
Yeah.
And I just said, because I pitched him an idea, and he goes, yeah, I tried that. It was all right. I used it a few times, and I set it aside. And I said, well, what about a motor with these speeds, with this voltage, that's reversible, it does this. And he goes, yeah. And I go, and it's got a slip clutch on it. Flex coat slip clutch. And then he paused. There was silence on the phone. I was like, uh-oh, what's about to happen? He goes, that might work.
Yeah.
I was like, okay.
There you go.
So
I've cleared a hurdle. That's right.
So I built that thing up, and that's basically the evolution of the UMDC, and then now the UMDX.
Yeah, and so I didn't know there was I knew there was the new wrapping machine, the DX 777.
Upgrade the motor
DC.
too. I mean, the motor.
So what's the difference between the DC and the DX?
Sure. So the DC was, let me see if I can get this right off the top of my head.
Okay.
It was a 40 to 420 RPM motor with a foot control, and our foot control is not just an on-off switch. It is there's variability in that foot control.
Very good control, and you can control the dial too.
That's right.
You got like double layer of control. Yeah.
Yeah. I can take anybody that's never power wrapped, or someone that has power wrapped on whatever machine, you name it, and I can get them on this machine, and I can see the spark go off, because it's about ultimate control. You've got so many different things to dial in. If you never want to go over a certain RPM, you dial that top speed in on the knob.
Yeah.
And then when you hit the pedal to the metal, you're never going to exceed that. Right. So if you're going over, you're going up a guide foot, or if you're hitting a technical spot or whatever it is, you've got ultimate control. And then it's got the slip clutch on there.
Yeah.
So you can always do the hand braking and just stop on a dime.
Yep.
You can back it up really easily and then put it back on there.
Yeah.
So it's about simplistic control. That's what I like to say. It's the best tool. Is it perfect? I'm not going to go that far. It is not perfect. Nothing we make is perfect.
Well, and there's personal preference too, but yeah,
it's the best tool for the money. That's OEM quality, and it helps you as the rod builder focus on your build.
Yep.
There's nothing in there. It's like, it's great, but this, it's
right.
great, but that. And then, we try to avoid all the roller supports are up on, I'm going into the machine, or up on the slot board on the back, the PVC slot board. You can go seamlessly under the machine. There's nothing coming up from the base that you've got to work around, things like that.
Yeah.
So, and that's to give Roger Cedars credit. That's all the stuff that he developed. So I was already handed an awesome design.
Right.
Okay.
Which automatically aligns, automatically levels. Like it just keeps it real simple. Yeah.
So it's not like John Cates, invented the whole thing. That is not true.
Sure.
Okay. I talked to people that were way smarter than me. Yep. And I had a product that was already proven in an industry that's great as it was, but it just needed some help. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I was going to say, and maybe we could argue that it's one skill set to create it, and then it takes another skill set and perspective to evolve and improve it. Right. And the better it is originally, the harder it is to tweak and update and improve. But it certainly seems like you've been really successful doing that.
Right. It's the whole jack of all trades mentality. And I'm really big on that because it's funny. My daughter asked me one day in the car ride home from Austin. We live out in Dripping Springs. It's like a 20-30 minute car ride. And she said, Daddy, how many jobs you've had? And I started listing my jobs that I've had my whole life.
Yeah.
And by the time we pulled up in the driveway, I think I was on like 28.
Wow.
28 jobs. And I was like, I don't know if that's all of them, but that's good enough.
I don't even have to count. I know you got me beat. I haven't had that many.
I've
so you get fired a lot. You get fired a lot is what you're saying.
No, I don't get fired a lot. I'm going to be honest with you. I can't remember ever being fired. And I'm not saying that that's true. But and with that note, I've only walked out of one job.
Oh, attaboy.
Pizza
Hut. Did you walk out with a pizza or did you leave empty-handed?
No, I walked out, and then the next night the manager came to my apartment. This was in college, and begged me to come back. And I just looked him in the eye and I said, "I've delivered my last pizza,
bro,"
because I was done.
It's good to be wanted. It's good to be wanted.
Yeah. So anyway, I believe in that jack of all trades mentality where you can take this knowledge from over here in left field and bring it over here. Where if you have a specialist that's only specializing in this one field, they got blinders on.
Right. Yeah.
They can't see everything. So I'm really, and even if I don't know about this, maybe I know somebody that knows more than me.
Right. Yeah.
And I can talk to that person. So
yeah,
that's basically how I like to work and develop.
Yeah.
Products.
Well, I just think it's also, you personally have certainly helped me solve some equipment stuff. This DC now DX 200 motor is huge, or ULDX motor has been a huge part of that, right? It's an extremely versatile unit. You use it however you want for whatever you want, right? Yeah. Like it really is a better mousetrap.
You can mount it on other stuff. Yeah.
All right, wait, do you want to have a I told you so moment with Roger right now in front of the world? No, not going to do that. No. You're a good man. Taking the high road.
Hey, Roger is, listen, Roger's a great guy. He's a great rod builder. He's a great tinkerer. He's a great mind. I've got my shortcomings just like Roger does or anybody else.
Right.
So, I don't want to take anything away from Roger because I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you if it wasn't for that guy.
No, I hear you. I was just, I just didn't know if you wanted I told you so him or not. That's
no,
fine.
I'll do it to his face, but not on here.
Perfect. See, I'm trying to be controversial here. Get something to talk about when I have him on and get him to get you back. But you guys are too nice to each other. I can't get any traction. Now, you said something that brought me up short in the lead up to this podcast before we were recording. Did I hear you correctly that there's new motor news updates?
There are.
Are you ready to share that with the world?
I'm like an addict. I just can't stop. Okay. So, and
on behalf of rod builders everywhere, please don't. I want to see what you do next.
I was out in the shop yesterday, just drilling holes and stuff, because occasionally I need a break from whatever I'm doing. So I just go out and there's always something to do in the shop. So I just start drilling holes, whatever needs to be done. And, I was like, oh, what about this idea? And I just stopped drilling. I went over there and I tried. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. I don't know if we'll ever sell that, but it does work,
Right.
and it had to do with some roller supports and whatever.
Yeah.
It's not really a groundbreaking idea, but that's the way I think. And it's the same with these DC motors. And when we first introduced the DC motor, we introduced a product that we still sell. It's called the VSM, the variable speed motor.
Hmm.
And that's a 40 to 200 RPM motor.
Yeah.
It's we only market it as a finishing motor.
Yeah.
Could you cure on it? Yeah, you could cure at 40. You can. We used to sell a 40 AC motor.
Yep.
And it's not going to sling it off. People like it's going to sling finish. I'm like, it's
No.
less than 1 second per revolution, or more than 1 second per revolution.
It's not gonna.
So it's not gonna, maybe if it was as big as a car tire, you'd have some centrifugal force out here, but we're talking about a rod blank. So,
Yeah.
So anyway, we developed that motor, and we actually had a slower motor too back when we did it, and we sold those, and it took us a long time to sell those slow ones.
Yeah.
So we were kind of like, well, maybe we won't do the slow ones. And I forget what the RPMs of those were. It was like 18 to 60. So there was some overlap between the 40 to 200 and the 18 to 60.
Right.
We sold out of those and we never restocked them.
Yeah.
But we sell a machine that's called the 4X machine.
Mm-hmm.
It's got 4 AC gear motors on it, 4 switches.
I got 2 of them in my shop at Anglers Resource.
Right. Yeah, it's a great machine. It's one of those things, you treat it right, it'll treat you right.
Forever.
You want to support the ride correctly, all that good stuff. So I've been looking at that forever. I'm like, well, what if we put DC motors on that? Because occasionally, like I've got a customer who builds gaffs.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And a gaff is a big piece of something. And, he's admitted he's rough on gear, and he has had trouble with those motors, getting them in and out. I don't know if he's turning the motor off before he takes it out or puts it in. I don't know what he's doing.
Right.
So he has had problems. So in my mind, I'm like, we've never had any problems with our DC motors.
Right.
And I'll tell you why specifically. The gears that are in our DC motors are hardened steel gears.
Yeah.
If you hold that motor in your hand, you're like, that's something. Like it's all gearbox.
Right.
It's like, wow.
Yep.
So, and it's made in the USA. It's an awesome piece of equipment. And I've opened one up and gotten grease all over my hands, you know, just to see what's in there. But we've never had a gearbox blowout in over 5 years.
I was going to say, like, I just, I still have my original 6 RPM DC motor or AC motor from 95. So 28 years ago, something like that. So and that's, again,
those are versatile, but the DC ones are even
way more versatile. Yeah. It's just, and it reflects the change in technology since that time and just the versatility of that. But again, this isn't I'm so glad you brought up the multiple rod dryers. So you have these finish curing machines, right? And like I mentioned, I put 2 of the 6 RPM HD units in our new shop at Anglers Resource in Foley. And if you come visit, you can see that. I was recently in Japan visiting Fuji and doing some work with them, and I wanted to go to, they have several famous rod builders in Japan, right?
Yeah.
And one of them is a shop called Sabalo. And so I happened to be in town and near Sabalo. So we go to Sabalo and I meet this gentleman who's a Fuji authorized rod builder, which is a very high honor and that they've never awarded outside of Japan and all this kind of stuff. And lo and behold, what's he got on his wall at the back of his shop? But I don't know how old that one is, but an old FlexCoat 4 rod dryer. I actually took a picture of it for you. Maybe we'll post it in the podcast description. I need to send it to you. But I was like, and I asked him, I was like, can I take a picture of this? He's like, what? You can't get that in the States? This is from the States. I said, no. I can get them. I've got that. I said, I just want to take a picture of them from my guys at FlexCoat. I want them to see it.
Yeah.
So even funny. In Japan, the equipment is over there and still working. So talk to you. What's new?
So basically think 4X machine, DC motors, right?
Ooh.
And so like obviously slower. You don't need 400 RPMs on a Curie. So we've geared it down. It's going to have a master motor control. Okay. So it's the same box you're familiar with, 3 to 12 volt.
Mhm.
Okay. That in the gearing that we're doing, and maybe I'm getting ahead of myself here, but I'm going to go ahead and do it.
Do it.
It'll go 8 to 30.
Oh, wow.
So what other speed do you want to cure at?
Yeah.
That's it, in my opinion. I mean, I know forever it's been 6, but
Yeah.
6, 8,
6
what are
and
we
8,
doing?
I don't think that's enough to make any practical difference.
It's not.
Yeah.
I'm just going to settle that right now.
Okay. Director of settlement. Also, I'm adding to your title.
As I like
You're now
to
the director
say
of
to
settling
customers,
things.
I'm like, the finish doesn't care how fast it's
No, it doesn't.
rotating.
Yep.
Like it just needs to rotate, set, and drip off. So you've got that master switch, and what it'll do is it'll turn on one motor. Okay. And then you got 2 more switches up top, and it'll turn on the second motor, and then the second switch will turn on the third and fourth motor. So you can have 1 motor, 2 motors, and you can turn off that other switch and have 3 motors or 4 motors with that switch configuration.
Sounds clever.
And it's all labeled. I know it sounds complicated, but it's super easy if you just saw it.
No, I'm gonna say I'm gonna have to see it, but I believe you because everything y'all do is very practical.
I'll text you a picture.
No, that's cool. And so, what are you gonna call this unit?
I'm gonna call it. Let me get it right.
The
4XV.
4XV. So as a side note, I literally just bought the 2 units from you, and then you didn't tell me you had something new coming out.
Hey, Bill, you didn't just buy those, but
okay,
this is brand new.
It's been within the last year I bought those.
Yes, but this idea.
I'm gonna have a short memory, John Cates. I'm gonna be a revisionist historian here. I'm gonna make this your problem.
The prototype that's on my desk is less than probably 2 weeks old.
That's awesome.
So this is brand new.
Yeah.
Okay. And then so as a side to that too, so the 4X machine I'm obviously super excited about because I envisioned that a long time ago too. Right. Yeah. And I have I have a multiple years old prototype that's been on the shelf, but it never came to anything.
Yeah.
So and I've even messed around to take that a step further. I've messed around with like, okay, well, what if we just have a 4X machine that's got 1 motor on it and you got a belt, right?
Yeah.
And so I built one, right?
Yeah.
And it works, and it works well. But to be honest with you, I can't get it to be cheaper in cost than to put 3 motors or 4 motors on.
Well, then you're not solving.
By the time you do the pulleys and the blah 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 and all that stuff, and the labor and everything, it's just like, what are we doing? Just put 4 motors on it.
Yeah.
So that's why it remains with 4 motors. And then obviously we're going to have a slower version of the VSM.
Yeah.
That is going to be 8 to 100 RPMs.
Mm.
So that's a definite cure and finish motor.
Yeah.
Right there.
That's awesome.
So, super excited. About those.
No, that's great. And again, we'll try to post some pictures and some descriptions. This stuff is all very well laid out on the FlexCoat website.
Yep. I do all that.
Yeah, no. And so there's a lot of good stuff out there. So if you haven't been on there, obviously they have an online shop. And one of the things I would sort of point you to, they've got all the stuff you think. They've got finishes and adhesives. They've got all the, equipment. They got all the neat little bits and
learning center.
But you've also got the learning center. That's exactly where I was going to go. And you've also got all these supplies and accessories, parts and extras. And so if you are one of these build your own equipment kind of people, FlexCoat's not making it hard to get. You can, if you like an element of their system, you can go onto the parts and extras page and buy basically any part of any equipment to make your own.
Wheels.
Right?
Yeah. And, just the stand. Like, okay, you mentioned earlier, what's the difference between the UMDC and the UMDX? So let's get back to that.
Okay.
So earlier, like when we were talking about me developing your motor, we were talking about height because I was dealing with our legacy motor stands, okay, that have been around for decades.
Right.
And
needs to be backwards compatible. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I was having to drill out each one. And I had, obviously templates that we decided on 3 different heights. Right. And I think you wanted yours low. So that's what we did for you.
Because it was mounting on a base. It was going to have an extra,
Yeah. You needed room to shim it.
Right.
So,
exactly.
So that's what we did for you. But I was just like, it'd be great to have not only a beefier, thicker piece of aluminum, but I wanted some versatility where you can like have set screws and you can slide the motor up and down to achieve a range of heights.
Yep.
So I went to work on my, back when you could use Google SketchUp for free. You can't do it anymore. I'm kind of upset with the universe.
Do you want to talk about it? Do you want to? You're in a safe place.
No,
This is a
I'm all
trust
right.
fund. You okay? All
I've
right.
moved to 2D, but it was great to be
Okay.
able to mock stuff up in 3D.
Oh yeah.
But I mocked it up and I really liked it, and I got to a shop drawing. I'm comfortable doing that kind of stuff. I'm not an engineer, but I like to pretend like I am. And so I designed one. I had the local metal shop start making them, and they've been great. And am I going to keep modifying them as the generations go on? Sure. I'm all about like, hey, this is great, but what if we did that to it, or put another hole here, or whatever it is.
Right.
I'm constantly thinking about that. So that's one of the things that we did to where, and also the feet can go side to side. So if you feel your alignment is off, your motor's not straight down the line, you can go here or go there, and really tweak it in. So, and then we had another motor control. I'm going from 3 to 36 volts now. It used to be 3 to 24 volts. I'm going to 36. That gives us a faster. Some people, I was like, hey, I want this thing fast. 420 is not fast enough. I want to go. So now it goes to, I want to say it goes to 700 RPMs.
Holy cow.
And so that's plenty fast for wrapping. It's not as fast as the F1 race car we talked about earlier, the Dayton motor. I mean, that's like,
fast sewing machine
3,000 RPMs.
Yeah, right.
But I would argue no one can wrap a rod at 3,000 RPMs.
No, I know I can't. I can't. And I'd rather have the control of the hard part is starting and stopping for me with the power wrap. And so the real fine control you would get with this. And again, I personally don't power wrap much. Like if I just have big saltwater under wraps, then I will. But all the guide wrap, everything I do by hand. But it's still nice to have that control for finishing, for the slip clutch. I mean, it's just
it sounds really dumb what I'm about to say, but if you have like our machine, the DX747, and let's say you like to hand wrap a rod a lot, you can go from hand wrapping to power wrapping really easily. But it's nice to have that rod in that chuck with the slip clutch. It gives you a little bit of tension. It'll hold the thread tension. You can get up and walk away. You can come back, and there's something about it being chucked up into that motor. Even if you're hand wrapping, it's nice.
Nothing happens by accident.
It sounds stupid to say, hey, we got a $300 boat anchor down there that we're just using as this, but it really does make a difference. And you will,
and then you use it when you go to finish, right? When you go to apply finish, right? Yeah. So it's however you do it, it works. Yeah.
And to that end, let's say I don't ever want to power wrap. Well, then you go to the VSM.
Yeah.
Because then you could chuck it in there and still get that, what I was talking about, to where it's on the slip clutch and things like that. So that's the main differences. And then we haven't talked, you touched on earlier, the motor lock. The motor lock is a huge deal. Whenever the last two ICRBEs, mainly what I did in my demonstrations is I showed off guide foot adhesive, guide alignment tool, sighting down the rods. If you're not familiar, watch our videos. People say, I've seen your videos. I never got it until you did it live in front of me.
Right. Yeah.
You can get your guides
just about
on the axis that you want to build perfectly straight in a minute.
Yeah. Prior to wrapping. Yep.
Yeah. Prior to wrapping, you get it, sight it down on there. You've locked that rod right up and down the axis you want to build. You can sight down through your rod to that red stripe and just put that on there. The big tip is slide your thumb off. Don't pull it off, because if you're on a tiny little guide, it's going to stick to your thumb more than so slide it off.
Right.
And it changes a lot of things, because I'm not a fan of tape. I'm not a fan of dental ligatures. I'm not a fan of zip ties.
Me neither.
I just think all that stuff is way too much work. And
I don't know why I don't know why everybody doesn't use the guide foot adhesive. And so what he's referring to is, this is not a new FlexCoat product. It's been around as long as I've been rod building. It's been around forever, but it would be really simple to look at it and say, oh, it's a hot glue stick. Well, and it is that type of product, but you literally just warm a guide foot, swipe it on there, put it in place, and then it holds it better than tape and easier, so you can wrap it, but then you can still break it free to align
It's got some gumminess to it. And to your point, you could go out and, I mean, there's some glue sticks sitting right here in front of me. You could probably do that in a pinch. And it would probably work.
I've tried it. And here's what I found. There's something about the formulation of
there you go.
your stick that's very
we tried hundreds of them.
Well, what
This
happens
is the
is
one we like.
when you move it, it's the adhesive always sticks to the bottom of the guide foot because
Yeah.
I often have to align my guides after I wrap them.
Hmm.
And what I found when I experimented with other sticks, sure, anything will hold it on there.
Yeah.
But when you
Just the
move it, it
tweaking.
sometimes would stick to the blank, wouldn't go with the foot. Y'all's always sticks to the foot of the guide, and so you always
Yeah.
get that cushion. And I really, to be perfectly honest, the only reason I ever used the guide foot adhesive was just ease of wrapping. It's so easy to just get the guide on there, and like you're saying, no tape, no ligatures, no
Yeah.
zip ties, no uni knots, no any of these other things I've seen that I know they all work, but it just seems
Yeah.
really complicated and painful to me.
Yeah.
And only after I had been using it for, golly, John, probably like 10 years, my brother, Trey, is my biggest field tester, and he
Okay.
probably fishes more of my rods than the next two people combined. And he
That's awesome.
definitely breaks
Yeah.
and breaks
He's your
down
brother.
more rods than anybody else because he's not hard on his equipment per se, but he
Yeah.
fishes, right? And he
Yeah.
takes
Yeah.
a lot of people fishing. He takes Boy Scouts fishing. He takes people from church fishing. He takes kids fishing.
Yeah.
High school kid. I mean, he takes all kinds of people fishing, and his
Yeah.
equipment just gets used, right?
Yeah.
And what I found was I would get some of these, and he's typically fishing. He fishes the Shoulder Bend area of Florida, and is typically fishing inshore for like speckled trout, redfish, flounder, this kind of thing. And parabolic kind of popping action type rods that fully
Okay.
flex. And what I found was when I'd start getting rods back to have a guide repaired, or whatever, I actually had rods that he had used enough where the guide foot had begun to dig into the blank a little
There
bit.
you go. Yeah.
And what I
I've seen that.
found when I use the guide foot adhesive, I've never seen one do that. And
It's a
these are
little
the
cushion.
same type of rods being, well, it doesn't, I've had people, you and I've had this conversation. I've had
Yep.
an engineer tell me, if you
Yep.
do that, you're dampening the sensitivity
Yep.
of the rod, and there's
Yep.
no way. And it's like, look,
I don't buy it, but
look, I don't care. I don't need to be right. What I can tell you is, in my experience, if you put the
Yeah.
guide foot adhesive on, not only are you twice as fast wrapping and not dealing with all the frustration of that guide not
Yeah.
staying where you need it while you're trying to wrap it, but I'm seeing personally very, very positive kind of cushion and insurance and protection of the blank. And I'm
Yep.
talking about over decades of hard
Yep.
use. So maybe that's not practical to for some
No,
people, or they don't fish
I
that
think
hard,
it
but
is.
it makes a difference, right? And to me, this is the thing about custom. Why wouldn't you do every little thing you can to make this the best possible rod that lasts as long as it possibly can and
And
performs
it's
at the highest
easier.
level?
Let's not
Well,
forget
that's just
about the
it. That's the
now.
reason I'm doing it. It's so much easier. Yeah.
It's to me, it's like, it's the present. Like you
Yeah.
got to be present in the moment,
Yeah,
if you
yeah.
want to get philosophical. But
Yeah.
so and to your point, it doesn't take a lot. You can get a 3-inch stick of guide foot adhesive, and it will last you forever. No joke.
No joke.
Because and if you see our videos, we take a lighter. I don't have a lighter around.
I was
here,
just gonna
but
say
you-
the aim and flame type electric match, and they melt one into the glue stick and stick it onto
Yes.
the actual lighter.
And so it's
all you gotta
one-handed.
do, all you gotta do is
You got
warm
your
the
guide,
guide,
you heat
swipe
it,
it on the thing right on the
swipe
rod.
it on
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
You don't want to get too much guide foot adhesive on there. You don't want to
Yep.
overheat it. If you heat it to where you see smoke, you've overheated the guide.
Yeah.
So just slightly lick the flame, go through it just like that, just
a
enough
swipe.
to get
Yep.
a little bit on there, and
Yeah.
you push it on there. If it's a
Right.
2-footed guide, you
Yeah.
could get it on both feet. I honestly, when I'm doing a 2-footed, I just do one.
Oh, do you? Okay. Yeah.
I mean, it's probably not what I should be doing. To
I
your
do
point,
both. I had never thought about
yeah,
that. I'm doing
I've
both.
watched Roger do it. He does both feet.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but
well,
it
some
just
of us
takes
are
a
just
tiny
willing
bit.
to do the extra effort. We're not lazy, whatever. Mister, I've
That's
never
right.
been fired from a job. Not with that work ethic you have.
Well, trust me, my wife has fired me from many jobs.
Now I believe you. Now I believe you. No,
so
the other thing that's interesting too is, and I should say, I don't know how long one of those sticks lasts because I've lost them. I've used them for 10 years and lost it.
blew
And
it
then
on
I'm
the
like,
lighter.
well, right. I know.
The
and I do
lighter's
that
going to
now.
run out of butane.
Well, and Billy Vavona taught me a trick. He wraps on a Renzetti, and there's a little metal
Yep.
plate on the thread carriage. He just sticks it
Okay.
right there. Glue, same
Perfect.
as you're gluing it on the lighter. He glues it right
Yeah,
there. and
I think that yeah, I've seen that before. I forget the name of the person I want to mention, but anyway,
That's
yes.
fine. Yeah, but it works. The other thing that's interesting is just because, again, I'll try anything, and I've actually done this. This is
Mhm.
subtle, but it's not uncommon for me, whether it's with the little gap in a double foot guide or whatever, where
Mhm.
sometimes I do get a little of the finish of the guide foot adhesive on my
Yep.
finger, and when I pull away, there's some sticking out or whatever, and I'm not using too much. It just sometimes there's residue.
Yep.
If you, whatever it is about y'all's formulation, besides sticking to the bottom of the guide feet every time when you move a guide, if
Hmm.
you just hit it with a little bit of heat, it pulls back. So if I
Okay.
have like threads sticking out, like because it's stuck
Yeah.
to my
It's
finger a
like
little
that
bit,
capillary action sucks
yeah,
it
it's like
back
you
in there.
heat it and it draws down, it goes out of the
Yeah.
way,
Yeah.
and it doesn't, and you can wrap right over it. When I tried to use a generic stick, it wouldn't do that, and it was
Yeah.
much worse than that. So again, it sounds like we're trying to sell flex coat only
Our
products.
formula
This
is
American,
gummy.
yeah, it is. It's way
You can
gummier.
like
Yeah,
bend it. It's like got flexibility. You can tweak it under the
yeah,
guides.
yeah, yeah.
I don't know. It's just why not get it?
Well,
It's not like it's
yeah.
outrageously priced. It
Well,
works.
well, it costs $3, but it only lasts forever. So,
That's right.
I mean, there's a lot of reasons
What are we
not to
doing?
use it.
What are we doing? We're trying to convince.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't know. But no, but it is. I love it. And to me, it's one of those products that people, Bob McCamey at Mudhole was a guy who was
Okay.
like, I never got it till I saw it. And then now I
Yeah.
get
Yeah.
it. And
Yeah. Yeah.
this is a guy who's been around forever, is a great builder.
Yeah.
But it's just one of those things like you're talking about with the way you align guides and all that. You have to see it to get it sometimes. And so if
Yeah.
you've never seen somebody use this stuff, you haven't tried it, you're welcome to reach out to John. They've got a video on it. I've done a short video on it
Yep.
before. It literally took 10 seconds.
Yep.
Form the guide, swipe it, put it in place, ready to
And
go.
they're on there. Like I'll hold the whole rod with the handle
Yeah,
built
yeah,
on it by the guide, and I'll go
yeah.
like this. It's on
Now,
there, but if you want it off, pop.
yeah.
It comes off.
And if people ask, no, it's not on there well enough to do static deflection or test casting.
No.
But I do like to put the adhesive on the bottom of the guide foot before I do that, so it doesn't mark up the blank in case I move things. But
Yep.
Herb Ladenheim may have solved that problem for me forever with his O-ring static deflection technique, which we
Okay.
just released. So people should check out that stripe
Yeah.
bass fly rod building episode with Herb Ladenheim, because he's got a really interesting system I can't believe nobody thought of before, and it's a good idea.
I haven't listened to that one, but
Okay, well, he
I'll get
uses
there.
O-rings the size of the guides and just
Okay.
puts them all on the blank, glues tip top on, does the static
Mhm.
deflection, and can adjust these
Oh.
things. You have to see it. It's like, oh my gosh, that's brilliant, and can make what he calls micro and nano adjustments. Like he's getting really perfect
Yeah. Yeah.
distribution, and it's so much easier than trying to tape them on or move or do whatever. But yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
so
That's
cool.
cool, man.
Well, so
But
I'm excited about these new motors and the new speed ranges, and also about the new DC multiple, drying machines. What
yep.
else what else is rattling around that head of yours? What else is on
Well,
the
I mean,
on
if
the
we could go
horizon?
back for a second to
Do you want to
the
argue about the 5/16 pilot arbor bits that we disagree on?
if you want to.
No, I don't need to lose an argument in front of everybody.
Yeah, those were just hard to make, Bill. And and we weren't selling a lot of them. And I just looked at Roger one day and I'm like, they're just drilling out like a 30-second. Like, what are we
Yeah.
doing? You
Yeah.
know? And he's like, yeah,
You were making my day is what you're doing, but that's fine. Discontinue it. Whatever, man. I don't care.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
not
yeah.
even mad.
Just go straight to the reamer, Bill.
Whatever,
What are we
man.
doing?
Yeah. I don't know.
So, hey, just to go back to we were talking about the difference between the DC,
I'm sorry,
the
yeah.
UMDC, and the UMDX. So,
Yeah, buddy.
I think we covered the motor, but if we step aside to the DX 777,
Yeah.
the stuff that I improved there, rod builders talked to me,
Right.
and I listened. Right, I didn't come up with
More
this
than
stuff.
2 spools of thread.
Yeah, you were one of them. So we got four thread spools,
Yep.
4 tension devices.
Right. So if
Okay.
you want to do 4-thread tigers, you can do it on a flex code.
You can do it.
Yeah.
You will need to side note, you will need to tighten the slip clutch to do that.
Yeah, it's additive pressure. Yeah,
and it's easy to do. Just a flathead screwdriver, righty tighty, lefty loosey, you're good.
Yep.
Okay. So it's not hard to do. And then we did a ceramic hook. It used to be an old metal hook for the little dovetail. It's a ceramic hook now. I'm pretty proud of that. And then
that makes me happy, even though I've still got my old original metal hook and it's never damaged thread or done anything wrong. But yeah,
it's fine. But I have had gentlemen that have had that metal hook so long it cut through it and broke it off. The thread. Ding.
Ding.
Yeah.
Wow.
I had to send them a new one.
Yeah.
So And another thing that I
I
did
can't
with the
believe you got
wrapper,
products failing after 40 years. What a loser.
I know it's insane. So people would call us all the time, and they still do, and they say, "Hey, that little thing fell out of my hand wrapper," you know, and we got them for sale on our website now, and that alleviates some of that. But
Oh, the little
if you,
triangular slide tension,
yeah, we call
the
it a
thread
dovetail
dovetail.
with the
Yeah.
hook in it. And
Right.
if you call me, I'm going to send you one for free. We've been doing that forever. We just
Oh,
send them out. But one thing I did on the 777 is I was like, hey, why don't we put stuff in this track so that thing can't slide out of there?
even better.
You know what I'm saying? So I found these little rubber bumpers. We put them in there, just little things. And then the tip top, the roller supports on our rollers, they go down to, pretty tight.
Yeah.
But tip tops of rods are like this, they get tiny, and
Mhm.
some people were not liking that top spring loaded wheel wouldn't come down on it. And
Yeah.
we're always like, well, hey, you just put your hand up there, you put your finger up there and just push it down and then just, we can make it work. But they're like, no, I want triangulation, three wheels on the rod blanket, the tiniest, whatever.
Thus the tight tip rod roller.
There you go. So I went in and I, had some discussions with Roger and some humming and hawing and then it just hit me. I was
Yep.
like, just hey, the hole's here, move the hole here. Done.
There you go. There it is. Done.
so
Solved.
so we fixed that.
So let's talk about that one a little bit because I want to talk about your chucks, right? So specifically what I'm talking about is if you look at a lot of these drying motors, if you look at a lot of the finishing motors, if you look at a lot of the wrapping motors, they have this, what you guys call the self-adjusting chuck, right?
Yep.
And it's almost like a PVC cap with a rubber diaphragm that goes on it.
Neoprene diaphragm.
Neoprene diaphragm. And I got to tell you, which you can get, again, this is another thing John will make for you. He'll make it in whatever size you want, basically, if you need.
Smallest we do is 5/16.
Yeah, so from 5/16 on up to whatever size, and they're cheap, so it can be really helpful to have a pile of them sitting around, several different sizes
Pop them on and off.
sitting around. You can pop them on and off and change rods. So I was not a fan of that. It felt coming from more of a true lathe, locking jaws, three jaw chuck.
There's a lot of people like you.
Right. No, there are. So I was feeling that way, but then you just showed me a couple of quick
Tricks.
You just
Tips
showed
and
me,
tricks.
yeah, tricks. You showed me a couple of. All right, I'm gonna give them something to bleep. Shit, I can't fucking talk today. All right, so you showed me a couple of. They tell me people love bleeps. Like my mom. Sorry, Geraldine. My mom's gonna be unhappy when she hears that one, but they tell me
Yeah.
it's good for people who will go back and listen. We don't know whether it's
Yeah.
to decipher what you're saying or what, but bleeps are popular. So you
I
can
won't argue.
fucking bleep as much of this shit as you want. You
Hey, don't get me started.
Okay,
Don't get
sorry.
me started.
So you showed me some little tips and tricks, and I thought, well, man, this thing's not precise. It's wobbling. It's not running. It's whatever. But all you got to do is you want to talk about a couple of the real easy tricks to center that on those chucks? Because they will run perfectly true. You just have to tweak it a little bit, mess with it.
Yeah. So let me get in to the real nitty gritty here. So basically, let's think about this for a second. Okay, right. We have a motor, right? We've got the motor that goes through the gearbox, all that stuff up to the shaft.
Right.
That shaft's coming out. What I love about our DC gear motors, by the way, is that there's not just a brass collar there where it's just riding on a bed of grease or whatever.
Right.
There's actually cylinder bearings in there.
Right. Yeah.
That are like, I know it looks small, but that's actually a good amount of
that's
cylinder bearing for that
6
thing
inches,
to be.
right? That's
I mean. For it to be
bleep,
rolling on.
Bleep
so
that too. Bleep that too.
It gets a lot of, there's a lot of life that can be gotten out of that.
Right.
But so anyway, and then you got the bearings rolling, and then you're going to a slip clutch, which our brass piece from the slip clutch is made in a factory that they make. And I've toured that factory. And let me tell you something, I've toured a lot of factories in my life. I've done, during my film career, I've shot things for National Oil Well Varco. I've been in their facilities where they make diamonds for their drill bits. So I've seen some stuff that'll make you go, wow. I went to this facility where they make this brass piece for us for rod building.
Yeah.
They make gun parts. They make parts for airplanes, spacecraft.
Yeah.
This place is like too good.
Hardcore
for rod building. Okay. But that's where we have them made.
Right.
And so that brass piece is really precise. And when you're spinning something, it's got to be. So that we
Yeah.
have that set screws, all this stuff going on there, and then you have the plastic cup that has to fit on that with a little bit of
Yep.
grease and
Yep.
whatever, and the
Right.
whatever, and then you've got the neoprene diaphragm.
Right.
Okay, can you imagine how many pieces did we name there? 5, 6, whatever it is.
Yeah.
You have tolerances when you're
Yeah.
manufacturing.
There's some run
right?
out. Right. Yeah.
So you've got to have all these tolerances line up to a way to where it's like good enough. And Roger doesn't like me saying this, but I'm going to say it anyway. We're not building a rocket ship to Mars here.
Right.
We're building a machine to build a rod. Okay.
Right.
And I've gotten calls. I have said, hey, I got the 777 machine. I love it. The chuck's wobbling. And I will admit, there is when we test every single one. I wire and build every single machine that goes out.
Yep.
Okay. Me and my right-hand man, Sandor, he's awesome. It's done right there in Driftwood, Texas.
Yep.
We hadn't
Yep.
touched on that too much, but we have a little bit.
Right.
So we run them all. We do what's called, because those bearings need to be what I call wallowed out a little bit to run true.
Yep.
We get them all acceptable before they go out the door. And if they're not acceptable, we set them aside and we do more work on them. Okay.
Right.
But there could be a little bit of wobble in that because of all the different things you have going on there.
Right.
But I will tell you right now, I could have that self-adjusting chuck out of true a quarter of an inch, which I would never let that go out the door.
Sure.
But I could have it at that much, and I could still get a rod to go in it and spin perfectly. That's what's beautiful about the self-adjusting chuck, is you can get it to like fudge in one direction slightly very easily with a little bit of practice.
Well, and that's why I brought it up, because I was anti that thing for a long time, because I perceived it as sloppy and lack of precision, but actually it's adjustability and flexibility. So to your point, right? And it actually works. So all you got to do is sort of just like stop the motor and rotate it in increments, right? And I know you have an opinion. Now you're using the pool noodle, but some people have an opinion about diaphragm in, diaphragm out. Like, what advice would you give people if you want to be able to quickly and easily? Because John's right. You can take one that I've seen him do it at ICRB. He showed me how to do it on mine, and mine doesn't have a lot of run out, but a lot of the times it's a warped blank, actually, right?
Yep.
But
or
again,
your
that's where
guides
this
are causing it to go.
right.
Yeah.
Right. So what would you advise people if they're having trouble getting it lined up? Because it's pretty simple to fix, but some obviously haven't figured it out. So
We got a great video on our self-adjusting chuck and slip clutch. That's a great place to start.
Okay.
You could call me. You could always call me.
Okay.
512-858-7742.
Wow.
Yeah. We put that phone number. Hey, we get a lot of junk calls because of that, but we also reach a lot of rod builders.
Well, there you go.
I don't mind hanging up on 100 junk calls to get that one rod builder that needs help. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So
absolutely.
And we do that. So, and I can walk you through it, but it's basically, you just understand how to twist. You're twisting the rod one way and you're twisting the chuck the other way. And you just develop the technique for getting it in there. And it could take you, even when you know what you're doing, a couple times on a particular, like if you build rods like I do, sometimes my handle's not perfectly symmetrical.
Yep. Center.
It's not dead center. If you watch it, it's wobbling, but the rod's straight.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. And then once you flip down the spring-loaded roller supports, that helps straighten it all up too. And to get so focused on what's going on right here at the motor and not looking down there where you're going to be working.
Yeah.
That's where your focus should be. Down there.
100%.
And seeing it. So all those different little things, and I think will make anybody happy with the run out of these machines.
Yeah.
Now,
there was a time I would not have agreed with you, but now that I understand, I totally agree. And that's why I brought it up.
Could we design a motor and all of these things that's just freaking rocket ship to Mars, man? It's freaking the Tesla truck of everything. Yeah, we could do that. Nobody would be able to afford it.
Yeah, right.
Nobody would pay that much money for it.
Right.
So you got to keep those things in mind. It's like, when you're talking about rod finish, and all anybody wants to talk about is, well, it yellows or whatever it
Yep.
is.
Yep.
And it's just like, well, if you only want to measure on one scale, you know, it all yellows.
Yeah.
But did you measure and mix it properly? Did you, you know, I've got rods that are more than a decade old and they're not yellowed and they've
Yeah.
been fished. Probably not as hard as your brother, but
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
I'm getting off into the weeds here, Bill.
No, that's fine. But I wanted to talk about it because I think it's like, and again, I think part of the point here too, and John, you know, Craig, Roger, everybody
Right.
there is a rod builder. And some
Yeah.
of them, like, I don't even know how many rods Roger's probably built, but
Oh, Roger. Yeah.
way more than
He's,
most of you who've been rod building a long time. I know way more than me. So you got to remember that all of their equipment is sort of informed by that practical experience and trying to keep it simple and trying to be durable and making it easy to work. Right. So, what I've learned is don't, you know, give it a try. And if you've never sat down and tried it, try it. You will never buy another motor because they're never going to burn out. And go ahead. You were going to say something.
Here's another thing. If you buy a FlexCoat product and you're not happy with it, you call me. I don't want anybody out there going, screw that thing, or that didn't work, or whatever. I'm having trouble. You call me, I'm going to make it right. If I need to send you a new bottle of finish, if I need to send you, I'll send you a new motor and I'll send you a call tag to return that one.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I don't want anybody dissatisfied with any FlexCoat product.
That's awesome.
And that's just hands down. And you mentioned Craig. You know, Craig is great. He's been at FlexCoat for I don't know how many years. Whatever I've been there, maybe
long as
triplet.
I've been talking to y'all, yeah,
maybe triplet. And he is he's kind of the business manager / shipping manager.
Yep.
He gets an order in, it's going out the door. Yep. Like he does not take a break to where like, yeah, we're gonna wait till tomorrow to get this one out. No, he gets it out the door as soon as he can.
Yep.
And that's just the way he does it, you know. So we got a pretty good team at FlexCoat that we communicate. We're all on the same page. You know, I always tell Craig, I go, Craig, if you ever get a phone call, and I like to take most of the phone calls just because I like to talk to people. But I go, Craig, if you ever get a call that you just can't handle, you just throw it to me. And if I ever get a call that I can't handle, I'll throw it to you, you know?
Yeah. It's a stretch to think of a call you got either one of you couldn't handle, but
yeah, I mean, Craig is very knowledgeable. I mean, he's been around it forever. And he's like me. He went to high school with Roger's kids and, you know, like you know, Craig is a few years older than me. I'm 47. I don't know his age, but he's a few years older than me, but we're from the same generation. Yeah. So we get all the same jokes. We quote all the same dumb movies and we have a good time.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, what else should we, what are the most common questions when you take these phone calls? Anything that you're always getting called and asked that you want to just go ahead and cover now?
Okay. One that's funny to me is we just recently, maybe within the last 5 years, we've been putting those stoppers, those bottle to syringe
syringe adapters. I love those things. Yeah.
And the ones that we sell have like a self-sealing little nipple or whatever you call it. Yeah. You know,
aperture hole. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So it's self-sealing. You could literally, it's not going to leak. You almost don't even need to put the lid on the bottle anymore. Once you shove that.
I don't put the lid on the bottle anymore.
So, we had a problem where we were just putting those in the 2-ounce kits forever, and we sell them separately on our website. We put them in the 2-ounce kits, and then we'd be getting phone calls. What are these? Okay. And I'm just like, and this is the way I think about it. I got 4 kids. They're still young. Children's Tylenol comes with that thing in there with no directions or explanation.
Right.
Ever. And I'm like, I've always known what that thing was for, and I scratch my head a little bit. I'm like, all right, I'm trying to say empathetic here and humble and everything. And we explain, and I'll explain anything to anybody over the phone. That's fine. But, Roger wants us to put in. So now we put in these little explanations on a little strip of paper in there. Yeah. And then one day you can't write this, Bill.
Okay.
Someone called me and said, hey, what is that piece of paper for?
You're supposed to eat it. Yeah.
And I was like,
So
well,
succeeded.
and he's like, yeah, I know what the syringe adapters were for, but it says on the piece of paper, do not throw away. And I'm like, well, I'm talking about the syringe adapters. Don't throw
Yeah.
those. So anyway, it's those kind of things that make me
John,
laugh.
maybe somebody just wanted to talk to you. Maybe it's your
Maybe
winning
so.
personality and they just wanted to get a little phone time with you.
Yeah, yeah, maybe so. I don't know.
We're going to get
We like
one
to have,
angry comment that pans this podcast and we're going to know that's who it was.
yeah, he's gonna be like,
Whoever
you
you
son
talk
of a
to, listen.
gun.
Yeah.
But hey, I'm looking over my notes here, and I do want to mention this. Uh, so my philosophy at Flexcoat when I got there, and I'm not saying I had this when I got there, but I kind of came into it,
Okay.
and I probably heard it somewhere. So it's not as like many things that I do, it's not original to me.
Which is fine.
But
Yeah.
this is kind of my philosophy. Working and doing what I do at Flexcoat, it's all about maintain, sustain, and grow Flexcoat.
Yep.
Okay. Now, maintain and sustain, that almost sounds like the same thing. But if you look it up, they're really not. So by maintain, I mean take what we have, which Flexcoat has great things to offer,
Yep.
knowledge, products. So maintain those. If there's any little problem, like for example, I personally redid all the Flexcoat labels
Yep.
about 6, 8 years ago. I don't remember when it was. And that was a huge undertaking because
Yeah, I
the
bet.
labels that we had were going back to the 80s. Okay. They were just old looking labels, which is fine because when a rod builder wants to use the same old Flexcoat they used in the 80s, they're like, oh, there it is. There's something comfortable and familiar about that.
Yeah, sure.
So when we're redesigning it, Roger was like, I don't want to lose that.
Mm-hmm.
It's got to look the same. It's got to
Yep.
be familiar.
Yep.
So I worked really hard. If you pick up a current bottle of Flexcoat, whether it's our finish, our glues, our 5-minute epoxy, whatever it is, any label you pick up, if it's not the old one, because there's still a couple that I haven't gotten to yet to redo,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I have personally sat down on my computer and worked on that label for many, many hours to get everything perfect.
Interesting.
The look, the Prop 65 warnings, all that kind of stuff. So
Yep.
that's like maintain, right? Like make it better, fix any problems, keep it going.
Yeah.
And sustain is keep what's good.
Yep.
If there's something that's just not selling, hey, do we like the 5/16 inch bit, like maybe we
You
should get
just
rid of
gotta
that.
you just gotta poke the bear. You gotta put salt in that wound. You just can't let
So
it go.
I've got to try to weed stuff out. Why are we
Yep.
doing this? Why are we
Right.
doing it that way?
Yeah. Yeah.
One example, another example of this kind of stuff. And again, I don't want to speak like I'm a freaking genius and I walked into Flexcoat and just started telling everybody what to do and this is the better way to do it. Any idiot off the street could have walked in because you get people that have just been doing a certain thing for decades and they don't question it. You
Yeah.
put the
Right.
blinders on, you're like, this is the way we do this,
Right. Yeah.
So I was watching our gentleman. Dan is another gentleman. He's part timer. He comes in and does a lot of assembly for us. He is an institution
Yeah.
at Flexcoat. You
Okay.
will never talk to him on the phone, by the way, but he's there, and we love Dan. And one
We
day
love you, Dan.
I was watching him doing our hand rod wrappers, and he was taking apart the tension devices. Take them all apart, put them in a bag, and then put instructions in there on how to reassemble them. And I'm like, why aren't we taking those apart? And I
Yeah.
finally asked, I worked up the courage to ask him while we're doing that. And he's like, well, they won't fit in the box. Right.
Yep.
And I'm like, okay, give me one of those boxes.
Mm-hmm.
So he gives me a box and I take a tension device and I just start kind of working with it. And where the dovetail slides,
Mm-hmm.
that slot.
Yeah.
I took that tension device and I just said, well, maybe it could just fit right down in that slot. And I closed the box and I said, holy cow, I think I just saved us 100 man hours a month, on labor.
And
So
his
I went
least
and
favorite part of the job. Yeah.
yeah, and I went and showed Roger, and he's like, yeah, it's all right, but he didn't get too fired up about it. And I showed
Right.
Dan, and Dan was like, I'm not doing it that way. We've been doing it this way forever, whatever. So a year goes by, right? And I come into FlexCoat one morning, and I had an edge to me that morning, Bill. I don't know what
Okay.
it was, but I saw Dan over there taking, and you can cut any of this out.
No, I want to hear it.
I saw Dan taking those tension devices apart, and I just couldn't handle it. And I just got fired up, and I went and I got Roger, and I go, Roger, come here. I go, he's out there taking those things apart. It's costing us money. It's, whatever. And I just don't think it's a smart thing to do. And I was fired up. I didn't say this, but I had it in my eyes. It's either me or this. And I laugh about it now, but I wasn't laughing that day.
No, it doesn't
And
sound like it.
and Roger goes, Dan, do it the way John says to do it. And we've been doing it that way ever since.
Well, there you
And
go.
it's just those kinds of things.
Yeah.
Anybody could walk in and say, well, why are you doing it this way? Why are you taking it apart and then putting instructions for the person to put it? And then we were getting phone calls. Hey, I'm missing a part. The spring fell.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway,
That's funny.
that's all I got.
Well, I'm glad you got to carry the day on that one.
Yeah. So that's what I like to bring. I like to bring like the guy that asks all the dumb questions.
Yeah.
Hey, I got another dumb question, and they're not all good
Yeah.
ideas, by the way.
Yeah.
I won't tell you all the bad ones.
Some of them
So.
might be interesting. I don't know. One person's bad idea is another person's good idea. You never know.
Yeah. And that's also what I try to encourage at FlexCode. Like I've told Craig and Dan and everybody, I'm like, hey, if you guys have an idea, I want to hear it.
Right.
And
Right.
like whenever I'm redoing a label, I always go, hey, come over here. What do you think about that? Does
Right.
that look good? Because
Right.
you look at this stuff for hours and then you just don't
Yeah.
even have an opinion anymore.
Yeah. It's like staring at a word for too long and you're like, the spelling seems strange then, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
You just can't see it for what it is anymore.
exactly. I get it.
So
I know
it takes a
exactly what
team.
you mean. Yeah.
Yeah. I will tell you a story about how I first met Roger.
Okay.
close
Yeah,
on
I would
that?
love to.
So
Tell me.
basically, I mentioned I went to Dripping Springs, school district here, and his kids went there too.
Okay.
And I was in, I guess it was 8th grade. I think I said it was 7th grade earlier, but it was 8th grade. And I was in a shop class. Okay. And we were building stuff like rubber band cars and CO2 cars and
Oh, wow.
crush designs and just lots of fun shop stuff,
It sounds
whatever,
cool. Yeah.
whatever the teacher wanted to assign. And then all of a sudden, Mr. White's was his name. He said, hey, we're going to have Mr. Cedars coming here and we're going to do fishing rods all next month. And I'm just like, fishing rods, what is this? So, Roger comes in and Roger's a presence, especially, and Roger used to be a shop teacher.
Oh, I didn't
So,
know that. That makes a lot of
yes.
sense. Yeah.
You should ask him about that. He's got a lot of great stories about being a shop teacher. Oh my
bet.
gosh.
I bet.
So he walks in and he knows how to be a shop teacher. Hey, if you want to know what I think, Roger at heart is an instructor.
Yeah.
He is in his element when he's got a group's attention and he's instructing.
Yep.
Because he does really well there.
Oh, we got into the ICRBE this year last year for the first time in a while, and he did a great job. And y'all's seminars were some of the most packed.
We tried.
No, I mean they were. It was the turnout was phenomenal.
Yeah. It was fun. I'm not gonna. Spoiler alert: I'm not going to be at the ICRBE this year. Doesn't look like. Yeah. I want to be there, but I got some personal stuff I got to take care of too. So, and I'll leave it at that. But you know what it is, Bill. But
I'm
but
just
anyway,
not going to keep me
Roger,
from giving you a hard time about it, though.
I get it, and I love you for it. So, that's my love language, by the way.
Oh yeah,
talking trash.
All right. Well, hey, I like it. I'm good with it. I'm very comfortable in that environment.
And that's Dan Cisneros, the guy who does our assembly. That's his love language too. And I've never seen that guy smile bigger than when I hammer him.
Oh yeah,
and it's just great.
That's how he knows you care. That's right.
Yeah. So Roger and me too. When he gets me, it's just it's a two-way street.
Yeah.
So Roger comes into the class. I remember in particular what he talked about. He got down to dollar figures. He's like, I made this book on how to build, and this is back in 1991.
Yeah.
And
It's been a
he
minute.
says, I got this book start to fit. Just selling this book yearly, I make $12,000, or whatever it was. And that caught my attention. I'm just
Yeah.
like, oh,
Yeah.
you can just sell a little book, and to me, that
Make
was a
some
lot of
money.
money.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was like, wow, this guy's amazing. And he taught us how to build a fishing rod. I built a little ultralight fishing rod. I was so proud of it. He would have us practice on arrow shafts. Just sitting on you'd have a coffee cup behind you on your stool, and you sit on the thread, and you'd wrap it on your legs, and you would practice on these arrow shafts.
What a
And
great
then
idea.
you would call, you like, Roger, look what I got. I think I got it. And he'd come over and he'd look at it, and he'd have this little X-Acto knife. He's like, that's pretty good. And he would just reach up and cut it off and go, do it again. And it would just break your heart. You'd look at him, you'd want to be mad. You'd be like, all right, I'll do it again.
Guess I'm not.
So you just practice. You got your rod, you build it.
Right.
I built my rod. It was black thread, silver tags. I was so proud of it. I took it to my grandparents' house that summer in LaForce, Texas, up in the Panhandle.
There you go.
You know where that is. I'm proud of you. And we were going to go fishing on Lake Greenbelt. And he took me to Walmart. He bought me I'd never had a spinning rod.
Yeah.
He bought me a spinning reel, and I was put it on there. I was stringing it out. I remember the spinning reel, it said Cast a Country Mile on it. I don't know what brand it was. It was something cheap.
Yeah.
And I was getting it all done up and everything. And then my lure was over there. So I was going to get up off my grandmother's couch and go over there and get it. And I stepped over my rod, and I got tangled in the line and broke the rod.
Oh,
before I even fished it. So
brutal.
Yeah.
I'd love to tell you I've never done anything like that, but I actually have. It was not my first rod. That would have been a hard one to come back from for me. But.
Yeah, and I didn't build another rod for many, many, many years after that, but I always kept that broken rod in my closet until one day I don't remember what I did with it. I think I threw it away, but
it no longer inspired you.
And that's the story I tell the rod builders, that I'm like, hey, nothing gets you over this one like the next one. And
that's exactly right.
You're not going to build the perfect rod out of the gate. It's going to be an evolution.
Right.
You're going to, don't spend a ton of money on your first rod, please.
Right.
Get something simple, keep it simple. We believe performance
Yep.
is where you should lock into rod building. I don't know, Bill. I feel like we can go on and go on and go on, but I don't know.
I'm happy, man. I'm happy if you're happy.
I'm happy.
Well, I'm happy too. Oh man. Well, thank you so much for being on this. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. It's been great fun. I really appreciate you coming on. Please tell Craig and Roger and the boys I said hello.
I will do it.
And
I will do it.
Yeah, we'll have you on again. I need your help. We're trying to do a Rod Fathers episode with Roger.
Yeah,
people want to hear his story. I've had multiple requests, and I'm like, we'll get him. He's just busy. We may have to wait till after bird season. I don't know.
Well, I don't know. I'll talk with him today if I see him. I think he's actually going to hunt this weekend.
I'm not at all surprised. Tell him I'm sitting around crying in my coffee, waiting for my invite.
He's just got it made, doesn't he?
I want to be him when I grow up.
I sometimes I look at him. I'm like, why is he at home?
Right.
Like, why is he here? He's got so many opportunities.
Yeah, but again, it's just the way he's wired, man. The dude's a worker and brings his lunchbox every day.
Yeah.
Oh man. Well, thank you so much, John Cates.
You got it.
Director at FlexCoat, for joining us. Really appreciate it. And again, John left his number, but you can reach him at FlexCoat at
gmail.com.
They're very quick to answer questions, can give you tips or pointers about using any of their equipment. If you got a rod building problem you're trying to solve, certainly recommend talking to John and the guys at FlexCoat, and they'll get you straightened out, and are just a huge resource, I know, for me, and appreciate everything you guys do for the rod building community as well.
Yeah. Hey, I appreciate you doing this, Bill.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. And if you'd ever told anybody that we were going to have FlexCoat on and we weren't going to spend a single minute talking about finisher adhesive, they wouldn't have believed it. But we did. We did it until
we did a brief second or two in there. I got it in a little bit.
It's all good. Well, hey, man, happy holidays. Thanks for being on. And thanks so much for listening to the Mastering Rod Building podcast. Please remember to like and subscribe and download wherever you get your podcast content. We'll see you next time.
All right. No, I don't mind. But
Yeah.
one,
So
if I could just say real quick,
please.
one thing I really appreciate about you, Bill, is that you're about community, right?
Hmm.
You're not into this like, that sucks, this is good, this, you believe, and we've talked about this, you believe there's room for everybody.
There is.
Everybody
Yeah.
that is good and decent and wants to make a good product and contribute, there's room for all of that. And that's what I like about you and what you're doing at Anglers Resource, this podcast,
Well, I
and just
appreciate
the
it.
way that you talk to people.
Well,
So
man, it's like it's really silly that when you look at the times that we've had setbacks as a rod building community, or
yeah,
as people who are kind of in the rod building component business and
yeah,
the rod building business, which you certainly are, I would consider that I am at Anglers Resource. It's like
yeah,
personality and ego. It's like a bunch of stupid little stuff. It's like, so thank you, and I appreciate your
yeah,
contribution. For me, one of the things that I've come to appreciate so much as I've gotten older, and frankly, as I can afford to buy things, which
hmm,
I couldn't when I was young and broke,
yeah,
which is where
right,
a lot of us start out.
yeah,
Um, I always know that if I buy something flex coat, it's going to work,
yeah,
period. And it's going to last. And if I ever have a problem, I can pick up the phone and call you. And I
yep,
think in this day and age, when you think about stuff that's actually American made and it stood behind, like you've thrown down a gauntlet, and by giving your direct phone number and email address and not hiding from customers and being willing to talk up to anybody about anything at any time. I mean, I just
yeah,
think it reflects kind of the integrity you guys operate with, and your ethos, and your pillar of the community, whether it's for OEMs or whether it's for custom rod builders. And so
right,
just appreciate y'all very much. And I look forward to having Roger on to tell the story, because it's a great story.
yeah, yeah,
And I think we've got a whole generation of people younger than us that probably haven't heard it. So I
yeah.
can't wait to include it.
I mean, when you had Vic on, I had the pleasure of having a dinner with him at the last ICRBE.
Yep.
We just kind of met in the lobby, and
Yep.
I was like, "Hey, Roger's about to be down in a minute. We should all go over here and get some Black and Po' Boys."
Yeah.
I got my secret Black and Po' Boy place.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say we were
Did
getting lunch
you?
from there. Do we want
Did
to talk
we?
about it? Yeah, I ran out and got you some one of the days,
Yeah,
or that
yeah.
may have
So
been
that
2 years
place,
ago. I can't remember.
yeah, that place was awesome, and I think it's changed hands, but it's funny because this last time I went, it's changed hands since then. And I went in
Yeah.
there and I go, "Hey, I see you got the shrimp po' boy, but it doesn't say blackened on here." And they're like, "Yeah, we can't do that." And then she went and talked to the chef, and he goes, "He could do that for you."
Okay.
So I was like, "Cool, black and
You're
po'
like,
boy
dude, I
back
came
on."
from Texas for this, and I'm putting all my street cred on the line by ordering shrimp in North
Yeah,
Carolina. Like, you got to
I
hook a
think
brother up.
I think every time I go to that show, I probably eat about 6 of those in a weekend.
Oh yeah, it's
But
good. It's good.
yeah,
Yeah,
so
I'm a fan of a Jimmy John sandwich, and it's easy, and they'll bring
okay,
it to you. But that one's
yeah,
worth getting out of there just to get the
yeah.
Black and Po' Boys.
Sit at the
That was
bar
definitely
and
a
just
John Cates discovery 2 years ago. Do you remember the
oh
name
yeah.
of the place? I could walk right to it.
It's just a block away from the convention. You know where the Jimmy John's is?
No,
It's
I
just
know
around the corner
it's
there.
right there, but it's like, is it called King George Pub or something? It's got a
I
weird
don't
name.
know.
It's got a name
I don't
different than you
know.
would think. Anyway, but it's great. We'll add it
But
to the notes if we can
we had
remember it.
Vic. We had
Oh
Vic
yeah,
there, and it was
yeah,
me, Vic, and Roger. And I never met Vic. So
yeah.
Vic's just regaling me with these stories. And I've heard bits and pieces over there about
Right,
this and that
right,
drama or whatever
right.
it was, and
Yeah.
he's filling in all the gaps.
Oh
And
yeah. I'm
I
sure
think
he knows all of it.
for 2.5 hours, Vic's doing 98% of the talking, which
Right.
I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I was loving it. And I did about 1.9% of the talking, and Roger filled in that last 0.1%.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it was amazing. And then I listened to your podcast with him. He told a lot of those stories exactly the same way.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That dude has got a mind like a steel trap.
Tom Kirkman and I were talking about this. That's so remarkable to me. And look, when I interview folks for the podcast, a lot of people go to the trouble you did of preparing notes, right? Like they kind of want to get it right. They want to have some
Yeah.
dates and times they know are going to come up. Vic didn't have a note. I
No,
mean, he was like, I remember it was January 11th
that dude's
that.
amazing.
He's got a crazy memory. I mean, just a really
Amazing.
exceptional memory. Yeah. At any age. And he's my senior, which makes it, whether it should or shouldn't, makes it even more impressive to me.
I
But
mean, you could make a movie out of that dude's life.
truly, Maybe we should.
Maybe we should. I mean, it's just wow.
They're not gonna make one about my life. I can tell you that.
I hope they don't make one about mine.
Yeah, I was gonna say it would be one of those deals where you got the handcuffs behind our backs if we made it to the screen. Hey, but hey, if we decide to make that movie, now I know my film major.
I could point you in the right direction.
Yeah, you might be the guy.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah. Well, thanks so much for your time.
Yeah.
That's going to wrap it up for this week. But if you'd like to be notified as soon as all new podcasts are released, just text the word fishing to 587-317-6099. We'll add you to our email list so you can stay up to date. Thanks for listening.